There we are.
Another good job, well done.
Very good, thank you very much. Guitar maintenance. I hate working on guitars, I'm so bad at it. Right, plug it in. Right, hello folks, my name's Jack, this is John, and welcome to another vintage edition. You may have seen recently that John I should say, took delivery of an original 64 335, which was lovely, and we pitted it against my custom shop 64 with mixed results. I'll let you be the judge of that video, but if you have seen that, you'll know that this is something that we want to maybe start doing a little bit more frequently. John's got an epic stash of vintage or semi-vintage guitars in some cases, but mostly the good old stuff. So we're going to start a little series here where we pull one guitar either from the warehouse or wherever it's kept, take a closer look at it, and then maybe explore some of the more modern counterparts that guitar has since birthed, if you will. So in the running today, I'll let you introduce it, John, if you will.
Yeah, cool. Now, this 1971 Telecaster. I've had it for around about, well, just under 10 years. I got it off my friend Matt Knight, who works for Boss Roland, and yeah, it's been a guitar again that I went for a stage of buying quite a lot of you know, sort of not prime, you know, like late 50s, early 60s guitars. I bought quite a few sort of mid 60s, early 70s guitars, which were kind of a little bit more reasonably priced at that time, and you know, I was probably more seduced by the look of this one, really. You know, it's got that cool, you know, like Robert Fordy kind of sort of look to it. I know his one's a much earlier guitar, but
it is
to me, it's just a really, you know, a cream Tele with a, you know, a rosewood fingerboard. Just got a real look to it, and you know, it's fairly decent weight, this one as well, so it's not a backbreaker, and you know, it's got a really cool, crisp, lively sound to it as well.
So was it just a right place, right time?
Yeah,
situation?
just like
you weren't looking for this
no, just
era Tele or
like,
anything.
Like I said a few times, you know, very rarely I'll go out looking, you know, for a specific guitar unless it's something that I particularly want.
Yeah.
Most of these guitars that we're going to feature have all just happened organically through a deal or like right place at the right time. So
yeah, they find you. So yeah, this is quite interesting because obviously we talked in that 335 video about that kind of being the golden era, like that, or on the cusp of the golden era, the late 50s, early 60s, and with 335s, I think they did kind of come into their own in early mid 60s there. But with Fender, it's always been a little bit of a different story, hasn't it? Where the late 60s, early 70s guitars, I think unfairly, kind of got a little bit shunted.
Yeah.
But despite the fact that a lot of my favourite Fender players played all these late 60s, early 70s guitars with great results. So, I don't know, maybe this guitar is now 50 years old. Maybe this is the new...
Well, it's definitely the new dawn. Yeah, it's the new era of kind of vintage guitars. When they hit 50 years old, you know, you kind of think, you know, this is getting into a zone where, you know, it's cool because it's really old, but it's into these guitars, you know, kind of a price point that isn't, you know, beyond the common man of being able to afford a guitar like this. So
yeah,
there's a lot more interest around guitars of this age now because of that, I guess.
Yeah, and I suppose you see a greater number of examples of them as well, I guess.
There were obviously CBS and Fender were you know, pumping out a lot more guitars around that point, and you know, a lot of these guitars with their really thick finishes on. I mean, this one isn't too bad. It's got a lot of natural wear on it and stuff, but you see a lot of those really sort of well, particularly the later 70s examples, you know, that's almost still look brand new, even though they've been gigged so many times, because that really thick coat of poly and stuff on them. But you know, again, you know, we overthink all this stuff a bit too much sometimes. People just like, you know, go down to the guitar shop, buy a Telecaster, you know, either buy a used one or a new one in the 70s, and you know, and this would have been the choice then. So
yeah, we do have the luxury of overthinking it now, because in 71 you would go into a shop and that would be the Telecaster. I guess you maybe had Telecustoms at the time.
Yeah, Telecustoms, the thin lines, all that kind of stuff as well, and you know, a lot of, you know, Jazz Masters, Jags, and Strats. You know, were starting to, a lot of hardtails were coming around at that sort of point as well. So
yeah, the Strats, I think, kind of get the raw end of the deal.
Yeah.
Really, people really don't like especially the 3-bolt.
Yeah, the 3-bolt
yeah,
ones. I mean, I've had a couple of early 70s Strats that have been really good, like really lightweight guitars as well. But
yeah,
you know, it wasn't just, you know, happened, you know, as soon as it hit you know, midnight in you know, 1969/70, you know, the guitars, you know, they're terrible now.
Yeah,
you know, it took, you know, you know, 3, 4, 5 years to, you know, where they almost become unrecognisable from the, you know, the original beautiful early pre-CBS guitars. So.
but just having spent a little bit of time with this, and obviously you've had this a long time, and you know it quite well, this doesn't feel like any other Tele that I've played, whether it be another old one or any of the modern custom shop replications or anything like that. It's very much its own thing.
We beforehand, when we were discussing this video, we were, you know, I was like, that guitar sounds rubbish. You know, I was like, it's cool because it's 1971 and all that, but it sounds awful. You know, it's an absolute bag of nails, which was kind of a bag of nails means, you know, it's really harsh, bright sounding guitar. And, you know, that's kind of how I remembered it being from the last time I played it. And, but, you know, you've already done some playing on it. And even just then when I just plugged it in, you know, to get the levels for this, I was just like, yeah, it sounds great. I mean, it's super crispy when you roll the volume down, because it's... it
is, yeah. I think they have a treble bleed.
Yeah, I think that it's got a treble bleed, and I'm sure it's either a 500k or 1 meg volume pot on there as well, which automatically adds a lot of high end anyway when you roll it down. But you know,
well, yeah, I'll let you demonstrate that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, like when you hear the sound, you know, on full, it's. You know, kind of what you expect to,
Pretty
you know,
fat.
like a. I mean, it's. I described this guitar to you as like, you know, before you had a chance to plug it in and we were discussing this video, I said it like just really reminds me of kind of like 70s country guitar sounds. So if you had a load of compression on there, and you know, a lot of lead guitar is all like on the bass note kind of. But it's just when you roll that down, you know, and when we was just doing it a minute ago, you was like, oh yeah, that's great for funk, but it does get super crispy and bright. Almost like lo-fi sound, isn't it? You know, when you turn that back up.
It's like a totally different
guitar. You know, it's just not just a gain, it's you know, full bass as well. It's really. Yeah, just dynamics of the tone changed completely, and I mean that isn't for everybody. And you could, you know, you could clip out that the treble bleed or change it to a 250k, But you know, it's like it is what it is. You just work with what's there. You know, it's got a tone control as well, so could use that.
You certainly can, and you should, because I mean, it can get vicious, that guitar.
Yeah,
but
it can.
How about the neck? Do you find
the neck pickup is? Try it. I mean, it's probably slightly brighter than most average tellies, like on a, you know, a normal 52 reissue telly. Not the muddy, you know, original 50s wiring. You know, the standard, you know, like an American original telly is quite a dark sounding neck pickup. But this, especially when you just roll it back a smidge, it's there's a lot of shades that you can get out of that guitar, you know, right from that really bright to really kind of thick. That's no pedals or anything like that as well, but
it's like the perfect telly for a singer.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
You know,
and
you could just duck out exactly where you need to let your voice come through.
Yeah, and you know, and with all that cut that it has, you know, with a little bit of compression on there, it's like. Yeah, it's just that.
It's still got the
honky
immediacy,
tonk
isn't
sound,
it?
yeah.
But it's in a different way.
It's definitely not anywhere near as mid-rangey as fat as, like, you know, sometimes it's, you can confuse almost like a, you know, a Blackguard telly with a Les Paul. It's got that real fatness and kind of extra mid-range punch. This is almost scooped in the sound of the pickup, isn't it? It's got that. And then on the treble sound. Yeah, it's more of a scooped kind of sound, scooped sound in Telecaster pickup, rather than that really mid-focused.
I think you have to work
sound.
your pick in hand harder.
Yeah,
with a guitar like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great jangly guitar.
And playability-wise, how do you think that fares?
I think it plays pretty well. I mean, to me, probably this guitar probably plays better than a standard 7.25 radius guitar with vintage frets, you know, from off the shelf, because it's, you know, it's been played in over the years, and I'm not sure if this one's been refretted or anything, but it's been well cared for. And again, you know, we've spoken about it before, action's not super low, but it's high enough so you can dig in without, you know, going too crazy on it, and you know, and low enough to still, you know, play some modern stuff on there as well.
Yeah. It does take a little bit of adjusting to, doesn't it? The small frets.
Yeah, it does. But again, it just makes for a completely different playing experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, no, it's a cool guitar, you know, and probably hasn't had quite the credit it really deserves. And I think with a few slight tweaks, you know, you could really turn this into a really monster sounding guitar if you just change that volume pot and the and take out that treble bleed. But you know what? Does it then just turn it into just another wannabe, you know, 50s style Telecaster? It's got its own thing here, hasn't it now? So,
I've never understood those conversion guitars. You know, I see why people do it, but it's, you know, you're trying to make it into something it's categorically not.
No, I mean, this is, you know, it sounds very different to a 50s style Telecaster, but it's certainly got its own thing going on. So
yeah. Well, what we're going to do now is fast forward 50 years and see where Fender is in the present day. Right, so that was 1971. This is now 2021. 50 years on, obviously Fender is known as being a company that constantly evolves. They're always referencing their past, but they're very keen to push forward. And we've seen in more recent years guitars like this, the American Professional 2, which, although it's a little bit confusingly named, this is basically the standard.
Yeah.
This is what the standard always was, as this was 50 years before it. So how far have they come, and is it good or bad?
Well, that's it. I think, a company like Fender are so tied to tradition that whenever they try and do anything else new, and this is the only industry that we're stuck in where we all want guitars that are based on ones that were made in the 50s and 60s. Can you imagine, us all walking around with our retro 3310 Nokias? It's never going to happen unless you're super cool hipster. Maybe,
yeah, like Drew.
Yeah, maybe, but we are neither. So,
but yeah, it moves so fast, doesn't it? Even using an iPhone 3G or something would be weird now.
Yeah, totally.
Guitars are totally the opposite, like you say.
So they're tied to tradition, and obviously they respect that with their custom shop guitars and vintage style American originals, the American vintage series guitars, and all that kind of stuff. So they're always kind of being pulled in both directions, where there's guys that are like, oh, there's nostalgia guys, it's got to be vintage, it has to sound like this. But then there's a lot of modern guitar players that are like, I don't get on with certain things, on vintage guitars, but I want it to sound like one of those. Or, I love the idea of a vintage guitar, but when I got past the 12th fret, I can't get good intonation, and, I can't get good access. It's only got 21 frets. So kind of what they're trying to do with this range is kind of get as close as possible to a vintage sounding guitar, but still make it playable like a modern, boutique, high-end, super Strat or super Tele style guitar companies that come out of California and all over other parts of the world. So it is a tough one for Fender, because they don't want to be pigeonholed into being just, modern guitars or just vintage. So the American Pro range is a good opportunity for them to kind of tie the two together without necessarily, having to, put all their eggs in one basket and say, this is our super modern guitar like the Ultras, or, the American original, American vintage. These are, a good, this is a great Fender if you want playability, great tone, and, just a good dependable instrument as well. And this range, they're actually available in a variety of colours. So they do the sunbursts and the whites, and then they also do some slightly more different finishes like this and other sparkle finishes as well.
I love that.
Yeah,
finish. That's such a cool look at it. I mean, I think you nailed it there perfectly. It's the Goldilocks model, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you want a bigger idea of what Fender's currently about, we'll link in the description below our recent video where I sort of took apart the full USA lineup. So covered every different model, and this is bang in the middle in every way.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that it's vanilla or it's plain. It just covers pretty much everything that any player could want.
And it's not, don't feel guilty for wanting to have easy playability, but it to sound like an old guitar. That's surely that is the best of both worlds. But a lot of the guys that want that vintage tone want the whole vintage vibe with a super thin nitro finish, the radius, specific type pickups and stuff. This is just a great, straight out the box. I want a Telecaster, I want it to play good. This is the way to go.
And it obviously speaks to what people do want out of their guitars. Because I mean, we kind of live in a little bit more of a vintage bubble, I think, than maybe some people do. And this is fantastic, but even this guitar, I think, is starting to veer more into that. Like I said to you, this is a great studio guitar where it's more articulate, it's got more immediacy to it, you can really manipulate it like you were talking about with the controls. And that's kind of what these guitars have always suggested to me a little bit as well, like single notes really leap out. but they sound great for chords as well.
Yeah, oh, totally, yeah.
So with your rig, you're going to hear some other playing clips as well, but with your rig, how do you think this responds in contrast
let me
to
just
this?
try that neck pickup again, because on that one it was quite dark sounding, wasn't it? I mean, it still had, you know, some clarity to it, but overall I felt it was like, you know, it wasn't that close to a Strat sounding neck pickup. It was still quite a smooth sounding neck pickup, but you know, with some clarity. Yeah, it's definitely got more of the twang and the spank behind. Yeah, it's definitely got kind of a little bit more sizzle there and a little bit kind of a chime to it. Which you couldn't get out of that guitar, because it's just, you know, it's just too smooth sounding, isn't it?
Yeah. So these are the V-Mod 2 pickups, which I think they're sort of proprietary for this.
For this,
model,
yeah, they are, yeah.
And it's interesting again, because I mean, I personally love this.
Yeah.
I love the sound of this, that smoother kind of thing, because I feel like you can lay into it a little bit more, and it's more forgiving. But that, like you said, sounds more stratty.
Yeah, well, it's again for a lot of people that have, you know, they go straight for that, you know, great sounding Tele bridge pickup, but often find then the neck pickup is too, you know, a little bit too weak or a little bit too muddy for a lot of people. This has got that great sounding Tele bridge pickup, and then when you do go to the neck, it makes it sound even more stratty, because it has that. The neck pickup, get. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, you know, without any big drop off or kind of dynamic change. It's still got the right amount of treble in comparison to that. But yeah, this is definitely kind of safer sounding, isn't it? In comparison to like that bridge pickup, it's like you've got to really be on your A game, haven't you? Because it's just vicious. You got it's vicious. Whereas this, you know, with the compressor on and a bit of the delay there, it's got that. It's still got that great, you know, kind of country twang to it, but it's just really easy to play. Yeah.
So 50 years on, have they improved it?
Well, they've, you know, added other little things in there, like for other modern players. So you've got the series and parallel switching in the middle. So in the standard mode, you have the
same as this.
Yeah. So when you hit that, thickens it right up. So you're really going to hear that with a drive. Then you go back to the stock mode. So when you go back there, it's got a much thicker sound. Almost a thicker, much thicker humbucker sound, isn't it?
I think maybe I speak for most people and I say there's two big changes that they made, that being one and 22 frets.
Yeah, 22 frets.
Those are the only big two improvements as I see it.
You know, and the radius, you know, it's just with the flatter fingerboard, the bigger frets and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. But almost at the moment, I feel like I've been, you know, because we've been playing some old stinky guitars today, I've got a little bit more used to digging a bit harder, and this just feels a bit like I'm going to make a terrible mistake in a minute or break a string.
great thing is, the great thing is when we talked in the Gibson 335 video about the new guitar just felt like it had a boost on it all the time, sort of thing. It lost a little bit of that dynamic response. These don't have that.
No,
they've
still
got the same level
that
of
single coil clarity, hasn't it? Totally, yeah. You know, all the way through the different pickup sounds, you know, on the switch. You've got 4 really usable sounds there, without kind of one jumping out and being either too loud or too muddy or too bassy or anything like that. So it's just, again, it's just a great out of the box, you know, tick all the boxes. You know, there isn't any kind of, you know, Telecaster guitar music that you couldn't play from the last 50 years on this guitar. I think the Tele is fairly unique in that sense, in that it hasn't changed that much. And it's only when you put them side by side you really notice it. But you'd be dead happy with any modern Tele, wouldn't you? And like I said, if you want to find out more information about the full USA range, there'll be a video linked in the description below that has all of that information. But this is the standard as of this year. As this was 50 years ago, that is where Fender is now, and who knows where they'll be in another 50 years. So thank you as always for watching, folks. If you've enjoyed what you've seen in today's video, be sure to leave a like down below. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new to the channel and you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the bell and comment down below with your thoughts. And if you want to find out any more information about these guitars or anything else that we sell here in the shop, everything will be linked in the description down below. So until next time, take good care of yourselves, folks. I think we're just going to play. Let's do it.
That's all that needs to be done.